Sego. Hello everyone and welcome to this week's Saturday Morning Breakfast Club. Today we're going to be making some Stovetop apple cinnamon oatmeal. This just seemed like the perfect time to introduce this recipe as the winter days continuously get colder and colder. The ingredients we'll be using in this week's recipe are half a tablespoon of butter, 1.5 cups of diced apples, which is actually approximately 1 to 2 apples. We're going to use 3 tablespoons of honey, or you could use 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. We'll add in 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, a 1/4 teaspoon of ground ginger, a 1/4 teaspoon of ground nutmeg, and just a little pinch of salt. We're also going to need 2 cups of water and 1 cup of rolled oats. You can also substitute with gluten-free oats. You'll notice that chopped walnuts and milk are both listed as optional ingredients. We're not going to be using them in today's recipe, but I will point out when and how to incorporate them should you choose to do so. In addition to the ingredients we just covered, we're also going to need to grab a couple other items from around the kitchen. Those include a knife and a cutting board for dicing up your apples, a medium saucepan or pot, which is what we're going to actually make our oatmeal in. We're going to need a measuring cup and some small measuring spoons, and then we're also going to need a wooden spoon. So go ahead, get all of your ingredients, items from around the kitchen, and then meet me back here and we'll go ahead and get started with this week's recipe. Perfect. You've got everything, so let's get started. Taking a look at this apple, you can see, I hope that you can see anyways, I've already gone ahead and washed it. Now, the nutrition comes from the peel of most of our fruits and vegetables. I'm going to leave the skin on my apple. I have older children and they're okay with the skin being left on. Feel free to peel it if that's how you prefer to do things in your home, but what we're really working on right now is just chopping up these apples. Again, I've got older kids, so I'm going to leave mine as larger chunks, but you can go ahead and chop yours up in whatever way makes sense for who you plan on serving this breakfast to. Now we're going to need about 1.5 cups of chopped up apples, so I'm just going to toss my pieces into this 1 cup measurer so I can keep an eye on how many I actually have. So this whole first apple should give me about 1 cup. Yep, that worked out perfectly. Now I still need another 1/2 cup, so I'm going to go ahead and chop up 1/2 of this second apple. And there we go. We're ready to get started. Let's add our 1/2 tablespoon of butter into our pot or saucepan. We want to melt this down before we add or do anything else, so over medium heat, just keep stirring your butter until it's melted. Once it's melted, you can go ahead and add in your 1 cup of chopped apples. In addition to the apples, we're also going to add in some other ingredients. Here we'll add 3 tablespoons of honey. In your kits, you would have received 4 tablespoons, so you are going to have to measure this out. Again, it's 3 tablespoons of honey, or you could use 2 tablespoons of brown sugar if you'd prefer. Give that a little bit of a stir. Next, we'll add 1 tablespoon of ground cinnamon. Now for our ground nutmeg, we're adding a 1/4 teaspoon of this. And for the ginger, again, we'll use a 1/4 teaspoon of ginger. Now take a minute or two to make sure you get this all mixed up well. You'll start to be able to smell the cinnamon and the ginger and the nutmeg. I think it's a perfect scent for this cold weather. Once you've got everything mixed up and you can see that all of the spices are combined along with the honey and the apples, what we want to do is cook this now for 2 to 3 minutes, or at least until you've noticed that your apples have started to soften a little bit. Once you notice that your apples have started to soften, what you're going to want to do next is go ahead and add 2 cups of water. Again, give that a gentle stir. And then we're going to turn the temperature up to high. And what we want to do is bring this to a low boil. I forgot to add in the pinch of salt, so I'm going to toss that in now. And again, I'm just going to give it a quick little stir, just to make sure that salt gets mixed up. And as I mentioned, what we want to do is have this come to a low boil. Once that's happened, we're going to go ahead and add in our 1 cup of oats. Reduce the heat to medium. Give everything a good stir just to make sure we've got it all mixed in really well. And then we're just going to continue cooking until most of the liquid is absorbed. Now, if you're choosing to add walnuts, this is where you'd want to toss them in, typically around the 4-minute mark, and you just continue stirring. Now for the finishing touches. Go ahead and divide the oatmeal between as many bowls as you're serving. Next, you're going to sprinkle the tops with the remaining chopped apples that you have, drizzle some of that leftover honey, and then if you'd like to add some milk, go ahead and add a 1/4 cup into each bowl. And there you've got your Stovetop apple cinnamon oatmeal. We hope you enjoyed this week's recipe, and until next week, Ona.